This is a human warning. 20 screenwriting tips from Quentin Tarantino and why they suck. This is based on a video I'm about to watch called 20 Screenwriting Tips from Quentin Tarantino from the YouTube channel Outstanding Screenplays. So this ought to be fun. I'm not sure these are numbered, and I'm not sure there's 20 of them, so I guess I'm not going to number them. So the first is be a conductor of audience's emotions. Okay, so he says that he thinks of the audience as his orchestra, and he gets you to feel the way he wants you to feel, and then he can stop you from feeling it, and then he can play with your emotions. Well, that's still the audience. I don't see how that's an orchestra. That's like saying, I like to think, like a cook saying, I like to think of my customers as the meal. They're the meals I'm making. I mean, I don't know. I guess it makes sense. I don't think it's a good screenwriting tip. It's probably not a good cooking tip either. It's not very flattering if I go to a restaurant and the chef thinks that I'm the meal. I would just say it amounts to nothing. He's basically saying that he likes to turn on and off emotions during his movies. Okay, yeah, whatever, man. I would say that's the worst advice possible. Like, when I see a movie, I don't want to feel like I'm being played with. That's the worst kind of movie I want to watch. I want to watch a movie that's actually got some kind of intent of its own. I mean, the worst thing I can say is, like, it's like when I watch Family Guy and it's a joke, and I'll be like, oh, that's funny. And it's like, that's the worst reaction to a joke, is to go, oh, I get it, that's funny. You're supposed to laugh. And that's kind of how I feel when I watch his movies, where I'm like, oh, I see, he's trying to build tension. Okay, yeah, this is suspenseful. This is supposed to be suspenseful. Okay, yeah, something's going to happen. And then, of course, it does. It's just predictable. So he's not exactly playing my emotions as well as... I'm not the violin. He's not playing me like a violin. Okay, alright. So they are actually numbered. So this is number 2. Write your screenplay for the reader. That's the worst for the reader. I don't even know what that means. It's a screenplay. It's supposed to be filmed. Okay, so basically what he means is that when you write a screenplay, you should write it so that it should be intriguing for whoever's going to read it. But that's more of a publicity thing. But I guess that's a screenwriting tip. If you want people to read your screenplays, you want them to be... you want the reader, who's obviously some kind of, like, market or some sort of executive, you want them to enjoy it. Okay, fine. Number 3, the only responsibility you have is to your characters. So I guess you don't really need a story then. But I'll bite. So he talks about the scene where Mr. Blonde tortures the cop in Reservoir Dogs. So Quentin says, saying that you don't like violence in movies is like saying you don't like slapstick in movies, or like saying you don't like dance sequences in movies. And he says, that's fine, but if your character needs to do that kind of thing, then you gotta do it. That's okay, that's great, Quentin, but why is it that your characters never do slapstick or dance, aside from that stupid Pulp Fiction scene? Why is it that it's mainly violence for you, buddy? Are you being true to your characters, or are you just being true to, like, what you're actually interested in? And considering that your characters are basically you, are you really being true to your characters? For it's your job to have a vision. So he says it's not your job to create your vision. It's your job to have a vision. Well, I have visions all the time. I don't write them all into books and movies. So you actually do have to create the vision. No offense, Quentin. Oh, but I interrupted him. He goes, and then it's your job to hire people like actors and whatnot to understand your vision. And then you give it to them, and then they articulate it and they create your vision. That's not really a screenwriting tip, that's more of a directing tip. 5, make it authentic and personal enough so that you feel embarrassed to share it. I would agree that vulnerability is the essence of, being an artist, sure. But then he degrades it to the fact that he'll have, like, an ex-girlfriend that'll watch the movie and be like, I can't believe you shared that. Okay, so you're saying you should be embarrassed that you stole shit from real life? Okay, because that totally is bad advice. I thought he meant it like in a deeper way, like show vulnerability, like, you know. But that's all he meant, is that like you're stealing a line from somebody, or you're stealing an event that happened in your life, and then you get embarrassed because the person's gonna find out. I gotta say, this channel falsely advertised the video saying it was 20 screenwriting tips when a lot of this is about direction, because the next one is if you truly love cinema, you can't make a bad movie. And this is number 6. If you truly love cinema with all your heart and with enough passion, then you can't help but make a good movie. That's more like encouragement than a tip. Number 7, have fun with your writing. Okay, I'll agree with him there. You know, a scientist once said, I saw him at a Nobel lecture, and he was saying that, like, some of the best scientific discoveries are made when you're actually just having fun. You're just like a little child playing. So sure, yeah, of course you're supposed to have fun. Yes, and it's not of course. You have to always remember, it's not work, it's fun. Like everything else in life. If you're not having fun, then why do it? I actually knew a screenwriter who was always trying to write whatever his agent or whatever the producer wanted him to write. And then he'd have to like edit it according to how they wanted him to edit it. And then it would just sit on a shelf for a year. And he was just paid like, you know, $10,000 a year for them to, what do they call it? They optioned it, right? So he would just write screenplay after screenplay, and then they would all sit on shelves. And after having been thoroughly rewritten according to what the producer wanted, so that his vision was not fulfilled. And he was a very bitter old man. He became a very bitter old man, and he was having no fun writing. And it's like, why are you even writing? I actually said to him once, and he was like 55 years old at the time, and I says to him, do you actually think you're going to be like, one day you'll be living in like Hollywood with a swimming pool surrounded by models in bikinis? You know, hot chicks in bikinis? And he goes, yeah. Well, you know, I don't think he ever achieved that, so that's a recipe for being a very bitter person. So yes, Quentin, you're right. You should be a screenwriter or whatever, any kind of writer, because you enjoy doing it. That should be the main thing. 8, it's about the character first. I will already disagree, because George Orwell's 1984 is not a character-based story, and it's one of the best books ever written. There's movies that are idea-driven, and there's movies that are character-driven, so you can't just say one way is better than the other. No, but he's saying this in regards to casting. He's saying it's about, you cast based on the character, you don't cast based on what the actor wants. So this is not a screenwriting tip. This is a stupid video. And this channel has 1 million subscribers. And in defense of Tarantino here, he's not the one who compiled this list. They're just taking portions of interviews and then organizing them. 9, read your script out loud to your friends. Well, most writers don't have any friends. If you're an up-and-coming writer, your friends do not want to listen to your stories. 10, carefully craft your character, then let them lead you. Again, man, some people don't write like that. So that works for you, but it doesn't work for everybody. It works for Stephen King. It works for, what's his name? The dude that made the Game of Thrones, right? But it doesn't work for people. And by the way, that guy's had a lot of difficulty finishing his last book. I mean, this is basically the kill your darlings argument. Like, you've got a great idea that you really love, and this is the way you want the story to go. But then the story, there's reasons why it just doesn't work. So you've got to give up on that and just let it go the way it's working. I don't think it's a character thing as much as just the evolution of a story. 11, a story is something that constantly unfolds. Okay, I love this. Quentin, he says, we're the worst at telling stories. We don't tell stories anymore. We tell a situation. And I'm thinking, yes, you're right. Most movies are just a scenario, right? What would happen if a girl got caught in the Antarctic with a lion? right? But that's exactly what Quentin Tarantino's movies have become, right? Like, what if World War II, there were a bunch of Jewish people that were blah, blah, blah? That's the story. That's not a story. That's a situation. That's a scenario. And then he goes, a lot of the movies that come out, you pretty much know exactly what's going to happen by the first 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, that's every movie you've made, Quentin, since Pulp Fiction. You literally called your movie Kill Bill. And guess what happens at the end of the two movies? He says a story is something that unfolds. He goes, I'm not talking about a quick left turn or right turn, but it unfolds. Where was the unfolding in Kill Bill or Django Unchained or Inglourious Bastards or Once Upon a Time in whatever, Hollywood or Hateful Eight? Where there's no I mean, if you mean boring, like that's unfolding something, like you're just so bored you don't even care anymore. Which of that, like in the Hateful Eight, okay, that I guess that unfolded. 12. Treat suspense like a rubber band. I was about to say this is about to be funny. This ought to be good, but it's not going to be. Oh my God, he talks about the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards as an example of how he did suspense, because it was the least suspenseful thing I've ever seen in my life. And this isn't even as like a 47-year-old as I am film critic or whatever, but I was in the theater and I was rooting for Inglourious Bastards to be good, and I was just sitting there being like, holy shit, he thinks this is suspenseful. So he says that suspense is like a rubber band where he stretches it, I'm stretching it to see how far I can stretch. Well, he stretched it for 17 minutes and there was no more suspense. After like 3 minutes, there was no more suspense. So I guess the rubber band snapped at 3 minutes, but he thought the rubber band was still there. Oh my God, then he goes, you know, when you make a movie, you want to keep the suspense as brief as possible and you don't want to wear out your welcome with your audience. Then why was the first scene in Inglourious Bastards 17 minutes long? And by the way, after I finished that horrible movie Inglourious Bastards, I left the movie feeling sorry for Quentin Tarantino, thinking, oh my God, he's going to be like destroyed for this movie because it sucks this bad. But of course, little do I know, because everybody loved it. 13. Give your characters moral choices to make and consequences based on their decisions. Okay. Now this is neither here nor there. I mean, it sounds good, but you know, when you're writing a story, you're involved with the entire story as a writer, so you know, you also want the story to have consequences. Like, I mean, you don't just think about the character and let the whole story fall by the wayside, if that's the right word. And then Tarantino uses the example of Pulp Fiction, where you know, each character makes a moral choice. I can't believe I've ever heard Quentin Tarantino use the word moral. And you know, it's funny because that's his only good movie. So, you know, yeah, he's right. Okay, sure. But actually, morality is a more important lesson to a writer than having the characters have consequences and have the characters make choices. And when I say morality, I mean meaning. Like, there has to be a point to the story. 14. Develop your own writing process. Well, didn't all previous 13 points, don't they negate what you're saying now? Okay, so he's really describing his writing process, how he would like start writing at 9 a.m. and then he would go into the hot tub at noon and he'd keep writing, and then once he was finished writing, he'd go over everything he wrote, and then he would think about what the next thing he was going to do with the story the next day. That's fine, that's good writing advice. I just wouldn't call it, I'd just title it writing process. Oh my God. Number 15, put clues to certain backstories in your film and let each audience member decide what it means for them. Or we could just like sum all those words up into ambiguity. So he talks about how in that Inglourious movie, Aldo Rain has a rope burn around his neck, like he's got a scar, and he never explains it, right? So he's just putting it into the audience's head. You know what? It's not that mysterious. I never thought about that or cared about it. I don't think everybody's going to be debating for the next 1,000 years about why idiot has a rope burn. It's probably because he's an idiot. I mean, what does it matter if they've got, like, if you're hinting at backstories when your movie sucks, right? This Aldo Rain character just sucks. So nobody's wondering where he got the rope burn. They're wondering why he sucks and why we had to watch your shitty movie. You know, maybe this video should have been called 20 writing tips for if you want to be a shitty writer. So Tarantino thinks that the audience, that like future fans of this stupid movie, are going to be wondering why and how Aldo Rain got that rope burn. So like when I watch a movie and there's a character and he takes his shirt off and he's got all these scars, you think I'm wondering where each and every scar came from? Yeah, now he's getting into ambiguity. He goes, he likes the idea that everybody's got a different idea of how Aldo Rain got the rope burn, and that, like, in the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, that everybody's got a different idea of what was in the briefcase. Like, yeah, ambiguity is really good, but you know what? Nobody intelligent is having a good conversation about where the rope burn came from or what was in the briefcase. I always just assumed it was gold, and I left it at that. 16. Make your script work as an art of it on its own. Okay, so he says that when he writes a screenplay, he'll put scenes in there that he knows aren't even going to be in the movie, but they're better in terms of being read by whoever's going to read it and greenlight the project. That's fine, that's fair. 17. Make movies. That is your film school. Wasn't this video supposed to be about screenwriting tips? Okay, it's also about making movies. But okay, you know, in regards to writing, sure. Yeah, you don't need to go to school. Yeah, okay, sure. I agree, of course. Everybody knows that. You're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, you're not a scientist, so you don't need to go to school to learn how to tell a story. 18. Rule out morality to have interesting characters. What the fuck does that mean? Does that mean it's okay to have Darth Vader in the story if you're making Star Wars? Because it's okay to have evil characters? Okay, so he's talking about the 80s where everybody had to be nice and there always had to be a moral to the story. Well, I would agree that the moral doesn't have to punch you in the face, and they don't always have to, like, hug every character doesn't have to hug each other. How stupid is this guy? Yeah, I just want to be done with this guy, but unfortunately these videos about Tarantino get more views, so. Okay, then what is it? Are we at 19? The only way to get successful is by making a kick-ass movie? Well, that's deep. So he's saying that if you make a kick-ass movie, that opens the door for everything. Yeah, well, no shit. It's just like if I make a kick-ass YouTube video and I get 1 million views. Yes, that's all you need to do. Well, it's also called playing the lottery. And I don't think that qualifies as a screenwriting tip or a writing tip. Yeah, one of my writing tips is write a really good book. Okay, we're finally almost done. Number 20, retire at the top of your game, which is funny because he should have retired after Pulp Fiction. Please, why God couldn't you have? I would have been praising you forever if you had. I would have thought you were a genius. And I bet if you actually went into this, he hypocritizes himself. Like every single piece of advice he gives, he's broken all of them. Oh, he says Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was supposed to be his big swan song. That might be his, like, retirement. And I'm like, wow, what a sad way to end it. What a way to leave the audience bored. You know, you don't want to leave the audience. Well, you left us bored. You started with Dynamite, and you went all the way down, and then you're just throwing firecrackers towards the end of your career, you fuck. I mean, I can tell you what his next movie's going to be, or should be. It should be a gay guy getting revenge on straight guys. And he teams up with a little guy, like, what do they call them? Little people? Who gets revenge on, like, 6'6" guys. And they form a duo, like a dynamic duo. And they just go around murdering everybody with chainsaws. Because that's what he's degraded into post-Pulp Fiction. Oh, and he says he's thought about doing a Kill Bill 3 because, like, that would just be so exciting. Because 2 of them weren't enough, right? Like, so Quentin, you know, now that your career is winding down, I would say, you know, from The Dark Knight, you know how they say, you don't want to live long enough to become a villain? I would say, you don't want to live long enough to become a hack movie director where you're just regurgitating bullshit. You should have quit after Pulp Fiction. Quentin, this is your human warning. Viewer, if you care about yourself, then like and subscribe. Help me help you.